So today we are talking about creating better photography websites. Let's go ahead and start off first and foremost talking about why websites themselves are important. I mean, how many times have you probably heard social media or have social media conversations with people talking about, why do I even need a website anymore? I have Instagram, I have Flickr, I have my Facebook business page. The reality is that a website is still the only place in the entire internet where you have the potential to control every single aspect of what the experience is like for someone to visit it. You control the color schemes, you control the layout, the user experience, the feeling, the atmosphere, the products and services that you offer. So for me, as a professional, as a full-time photographer that's done this for 13 years, a website is still paramount, even if I use social media in order to further the cause of what I'm trying to go for. And I'll have a specific section in this presentation talking about kind of content strategy and how social media plays a role. But I just wanted to really quickly say that I still think websites are vitally important, and that I think that almost every photographer out there should have some form of a website or a gallery that allows you to at least showcase your images, but also allows you, again, to control a little space of the internet that is yours and yours alone. So website platforms. So this is going to be the first section where we talk about a few of the different platforms available to you as someone that is interested in either creating a new website or changing up your own one. Now, first and foremost, we have WordPress. So WordPress is my personal favorite. It's what I use for the bulk of my main website, which I'll again talk about in a second. And WordPress is essentially a website, blogging platform that is probably the most used on the planet. There are tens of millions of websites out there that use WordPress. And the reason for that is its customization. The fact that you can customize pretty much everything you can think of gives you the freedom in order to create something that you truly want to showcase your images, to sell products or services. It does require a little bit more hands-on in order to not only fine-tune it and create something that's custom for yourself, but also to kind of maintain with security and plugins, because everything is open source. You have so much freedom and flexibility to do what you want, but at the same time, you kind of need to stay on top of it. So that's kind of the pros and the cons. And if you go to places like Theme Forest, which is another website, you could download not only plugins, but you could download WordPress themes that give you a starting point to essentially create the type of website that you want. And so oftentimes when I'm building a new website, or when I have redesigned my own website, I take a theme that is close to what I'm envisioning, and then I will customize it in order to give the look and feel for what I'm trying to go for. So Theme Forest is a really great place in order to go and get a idea of what's out there, or to see what potential themes you can use as your base, and then you can build or customize on top of it to make it unique. So really quick recap: WordPress, great for customization, flexibility, great for things like SEO, using different plugins to make your life easier in the long run, but does require a bit more attention and requires you to keep up with plugin updates. It requires you to have your own hosting, which we'll talk about in a second, and for a handful of other things. So if you're someone that likes to tinker, if you want full control and flexibility, WordPress is probably your best bet. Now, next we have Squarespace. Squarespace is incredibly popular with photographers these days because of its simplicity. You can sign up with them, do a trial run, have a website up and running pretty quickly. Now, the benefit of that is, again, it's ease of use. And you do have some flexibility in creating a blog and creating an online store and doing those things, which is what it focuses on. But I would say that you are still quite a bit more limited than compared to WordPress in terms of overall functionality. You certainly have more than a service that would be more locked down. But the truth is that if you really wanted to tinker and really change the fundamentals of your website in Squarespace, you might run into problems, or you might really have to still hire someone out there to do CSS or HTML coding in order to work around the constrictions that Squarespace has to have in order to make it a simple onboarding process and simple hosting. The benefit of something like Squarespace or SmugMug, which we're going to talk about in a second, is that they are their own hosting site. So they will host your site for you. They will hold it on their own servers, which means you don't have to worry about that section. But we'll dive into that more just a little bit. So Squarespace is a great option worth checking out for sure. SmugMug has been around for a long time. It's essentially a company that was created by photographers for photographers. They do great work in helping you put together great website galleries for what you're trying to do. You're a little bit more limited in terms of the blog space and having that be in addition to what you're doing. But if you're talking about image fulfillment, sort of print orders, if you're talking about just website hosting in terms of galleries, allowing for clients to kind of pick and choose what they want to do. If you're a wedding or event photographer, SmugMug is a great option that is also worth checking out. Now, for me, I mentioned that I use the bulk of my website is created through WordPress, but I actually do use SmugMug still. So this is my SmugMug site that has essentially been created to mimic my WordPress site, and I use it to host my main image gallery. Now, this is just a screenshot, so I can't scroll through it, although maybe I will in a second to show you. But essentially, it's a never-ending scroll of thousands and thousands of images where people can search for different types of images or different types of themes and see any of the images that I've created over the years, at least the ones that I've uploaded onto the site. Now, I've opted for this type of approach instead of something that a lot of other photographers do, which is break things down by gallery. So they might have like a landscape section, or maybe a seascape section, or maybe just wildlife, or maybe just weddings. I have all mine together and let people search based on it. And I just find that freedom works for me. That's not necessarily what you have to do, certainly. But I enjoy using SmugMug's hosting for my images because it speeds up the process. The images look beautiful. It's very easy to seamlessly integrate SmugMug with my Lightroom catalog and send these images back onto my website, even making changes and then having them re-upload almost instantly. There's a lot of benefits to that. So even though SmugMug itself doesn't have a great blogging platform, it can be great for hosting your main image galleries. And then you could use something like WordPress in order to create a blogging space, or having the best of both worlds, essentially. Now, the next section that we are going to talk about is design and layout. Now, this is what I mentioned when we first started, just saying that a lot of photographers that I sometimes come across their websites, and I'm a little bit blown away by the reality that their website wasn't or doesn't seem to be designed very well. There isn't a flow in terms of the content. There's too many blocks in terms of where the viewer is supposed to look. Things don't look great on a mobile device or tablet as they do on the desktop. So we're going to talk about each of those things. So again, this is my website, and let me actually get out of my presentation here. Out of my presentation and just pull up a live preview of my site. So this is my website, and this is the home page on the desktop. So I start off with this image of a cheetah, and it's just a stagnant image. I don't do a slideshow, which you can do. I do have on my mobile version, which I'll show you guys in a second. And as you scroll down, you see there's different elements that are both dynamic and that are also clean and simple. And so I think that's one of the core tenets of creating a proper photography website. Clean and simple. Don't make things overly complicated. Don't try to fill in every single inch of space you have. Try to make things look elegant and look fluid in terms of how your content flows together. So you can see on my, again, we have this main image, and then we scroll down, I have this paragraph that talks about who I am and what I do. I link to a handful of different places within my website, which are all SEO benefits, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It then flows into this image that is kind of below a lot of this text, and I have a little filter on it so that it's a little bit darkened. I talk about the photography workshops, online classes and tutorials that I teach, marketing campaigns. I have one of my favorite quotes in there. And then it feeds into some of the upcoming photo workshop adventures that I typically offer. Some of these are a little bit more on hold right now with dealing with COVID-19. But regardless, again, it's flowing. The whole idea is this flowing content idea. And then we get down to client testimonials, which are a random selection of testimonials from people that have sent in testimonials that have been on workshops with me around the world. And then we have my footer down here at the bottom. And I have 3 different sections: a main about me. So there's a photo and text about me. This is on every single page on my website. An Instagram plugin that allows me to showcase my latest publications on Instagram, and then a newsletter sign up. And we'll talk about the newsletter and social again a little bit later. But if you think about this from a design standpoint, we have a clean white background. We have enough spacing and balance between everything that we're seeing, and it happens throughout the entire main page. Now, if I go to my about page, just take a second here to load, we have very similar types of things. We have my core bio. It feeds into small interesting facts. There's a little bit of dynamic movement in the numbers that you see down there. I have a handful of video reels of different videos that I've shot or have shot about my companies, or that I've shot with other companies. I have a link down into how photography can make a difference that links out to the Giving Lens. I have a few behind the scenes photos. I talk about some of my sponsors and my partners. And again, my core footer there. And so you can see throughout my entire site. And if you go to colbybrownphotography.com, you can check out all the different pages. You see that whether it's my contact page here, my about page, my photo education workshops, even individual blogs, I'm going for a clean look. I'm going for a simplified design, and I'm letting the images and the content stand tall and stand first and foremost. And I think that's very important. Now, if I go ahead and exit full screen here and come over to this, now you can certainly look to double check on your website to make sure that it's designed correctly for being a responsive website. And what that essentially means is that your website is designed in a way that viewing it on a desktop or a laptop looks the same as when you view it on an iPad, or the same when you view it on a phone. Now, you have different screen spaces on each of those different options, so there will be a little bit of a shift and change, but to me, you don't want a drastic shift and change. So if you see here, this is essentially the developer preview within Chrome, and I have it loaded on my website. And here in the top part of the screen, you have this option to change the different devices you have on. So right now it's based on a phone. And you can see that instead of a static image on my main homepage, I have this small slideshow of different images. It feeds into the same text that I have on my desktop, feeds into the same section talking about my workshops, my classes, my tutorials, my marketing campaigns, the same quote. We have the different workshops that I showcased on the desktop version. Filtering down, same client testimonials, and then the bottom footer page. Now, the idea of a properly responsive website is that I'm taking my same design and I'm changing it so that it looks good on a smaller screen, but that I don't have to do anything drastic. So if I come back here and we go to, let's go ahead and close down the developer preview, you can see that it's actually literally the same page. I am just changing the way that we're viewing it and changing the way Chrome is thinking that it's displaying this on. So this allows it to display on a desktop, whereas if we want to jump back into the different options we have here, or we can go to an iPad and see that on an iPad, we go back to a static screen. And again, everything flows, everything has proper spacing. That's the idea that I mean between simplified, fluid, organic content that filters in and looks great across the board. Now you can see right here, this is actually an opportunity for me to make some changes on my own website, because here in the client testimonials, I have 3 here normally on my desktop because it goes horizontal. On a mobile phone, they're all on top of each other, but on an iPad, I have this extra space. So I might think about making some changes to the plugin I'm using for testimonials to showcase 4 testimonials on an iPad rather than 3, so that it fills and I don't have this negative space here. So that's a good learning lesson for myself, just checking this out as we're doing it live. So let's go ahead and get back to our presentation so I don't get too far behind here. So one of the things that I want to talk about with my own website, and let's go ahead and here, is when it comes to WordPress, because again, that's where I get most of or all my design and customization, is that you do have some benefits, even though you can use tons of plugins or lots of different things out there. Now, this particular website that I've screenshotted here for you is a website for a plugin called Elementor Pro, which is what I use in order to actually create and customize my own website. I didn't hire someone else to do it. I essentially use this plugin, which acts like a a WYSIWYG editor. WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get. So I can edit things in real time and see how they're going to look on my site in desktop, in laptop, on an iPad, on a mobile phone, making sure that I have all of those things, all those pieces in motion together. So whether you use Elementor Pro, whether you're using Squarespace, whether you're using SmugMug, all have these WYSIWYG-like editors, or the potential to have them when it comes to WordPress. I highly recommend that you take advantage of one of those because I think that it really can help you see the difference and see the difference between the changes you might be trying to make to your website in real time before you even publish them for the world to see.
So Colby, we have a couple of questions here.
Sure, let's go ahead and go to them.
They're related to the gallery. You showed that beautiful gallery on SmugMug. Okay. Dave is curious if it's hosted on your main website or is it hosted directly on SmugMug? It's
actually hosted on SmugMug. So if I go back here and show you guys, actually, let me open up this, back to my main page, image gallery. So actually, if we go back, you can see here at the top, I have colbybrownphotography.com contact. And as soon as I click on image gallery, it actually technically changes the URL, even though the top of the gallery feels the same. And so now we're at colbybrown.smugmug.com. So all of this is still hosted on SmugMug. So I get the speed of the SmugMug servers. I get their what they do with image resolution and compression, making things look beautiful. I get all those benefits without having to host all that extra size of megabytes of data on my own main website, which is another one of the main reasons that I do it. And then once we're here, as I mentioned, it just becomes this endless cycle of, or endless gallery of images that I've uploaded over the last few weeks. These are all my most recent edits. So it's, as I mentioned in the presentation, it's a great option for those that want to use SmugMug, maybe for your gallery, maybe for print fulfillment. If someone orders a print, they can handle everything. You don't even have to do anything. You just simply get paid. Your image is already online and then gets sent to a printer, and then those printers send it to your client. And then but you still want the robust nature of WordPress where you can customize things and have a blog and get the benefits of that, which again, we'll talk about a little bit later.
Great. The second question, also related to galleries, which specific extensions should be used when using WordPress, as the out-of-the-box experience does not deliver something like a gallery?
That's true. So the question is if you're using a WordPress website, which plugins to use? Now, to me, the best plugin for a gallery on WordPress that you can buy third party is going to be NextGen. So NextGen Gallery can give you really great results to create unique galleries that look beautiful. If we actually really quickly go here to my website, to my workshop page here, and let me click on one of these Iceland Summer Workshop. And integrated into this page, as we scroll down here, is actually a gallery from NextGen. So this is the gallery from NextGen, and then as I click on images, it's going to load the image and showcase what's going on. And I can control the look and feel of it, but this part of my website is still obviously on WordPress, all hosted or all use the plugin of NextGen. You do have opportunities if you use a plugin like Elementor in order to help create or customize your website to use some of their plugins as well. But if you want something that's more robust and more closely similar to something like SmugMug or Squarespace can offer, but that you're hosting on your own WordPress site, definitely check out NextGen. So we had a couple questions talking about website speed. Why is this important? The speed of your website matters because of how fast it loads. So you have people's attention span. You have things like SEO or organic search results, which we'll dive into more detail, but it's essentially how Google or Yahoo's or Microsoft's Bing or other search engines view your site. So the faster that they load, generally, the more they're going to show the higher the rank, so the more visible they are to people that are organically searching out there. And no one likes a slow website speed. You know, no one likes to sit there and get interested in a link. You click on it, it takes 15 seconds to load. That's not a great experience. So website speed is key. So what are the core tenets of a website or website speed? Or what are the core pieces of it? The first piece is hosting. So the important characteristics to understand about hosting or about speed is the quality of the host. So the speed of the host, the speed of the servers of what you're doing, of the servers that you're using. If you're using WordPress, you have to host your website yourself. If you're using SpugMug, Squarespace, those things are hosting. So this is a little bit less applicable to those people. Using a CDN service, which we're going to talk about here in a second. I don't want to spoil the fun. And then page file size / image compression. So page file size, this is what I'm talking about, where you're trying to make your images look great across the board. So you want them to look great on desktop, laptop, tablet, and your phone. And as phones get higher in resolution, as tablets get higher in resolution, so laptops are all 4K now, it's hard for photographers to decide what size, what resolution are you uploading your images in? How do you compress those images to make, a small gallery not be 15, 20 megabytes in size so that they load super slow? So we're going to talk about those options here in just a second. So first, talking about hosting. So for me, I host my WordPress main core site on WP Engine, but there are literally hundreds of options out there. Again, if you're using SpugMug or Squarespace, they're hosting it for you, so you don't have to worry about it. But for those that want to stick with WordPress, you got to find a good quality host that has great options, generally good customer service, because again, WordPress requires a little bit more hands-on, and then of course is fast and has quite good record with uptime, so the amount of time that the servers aren't down. For me, WP Engine is probably one of the best out there. It is also one of the most expensive, so keep that in mind depending on how much you want to invest in terms of your hosting platform. There is a little bit in terms of the idea that you pay for what you get. So the more expensive hosts are generally the better hosts, but every once in a while you can find good deals out there. Check out, and if you find a host, do a quick Google search and type in review at the end. Look for what other people are actually saying. Reach out to them, talk to their customer service. Try to get a feel for what that would be if you were one of their clients. But a host is really, really important in terms of the speed of that service, and again, how much uptime that they have so that the servers aren't down. And again, the customer service is paramount. I've had numerous times where I've had issues with my site. I've reached out to WP Engine. I'm either talking to someone on the phone or I'm chatting with them on a little IM chat directly from their website. Almost instantly, I get my problem solved. And to me, that's a world of difference. And so I'm willing to pay a little bit more than other hosting sites in order to have those benefits. So when it comes to hosting, it's really important to think about a CDN. So CDN is a content delivery network. So this is generally some hosts, such as WP Engine, allow you to have your website run through a CDN. So let's talk about why that's important. So first and foremost is that it improves website load times. So a CDN is essentially a network of computers or servers around the world. And the whole idea is that wherever someone is trying to access your website from, they try to find the closest server and then send your website from that server itself rather than something that's far away. So if you lived in New York, there's probably a server in New York and you're going to get something fast. It's not going to try to send you stuff from Argentina. However, if you lived in South America and you were trying to access my website that was hosted, say in New York, oftentimes it would be exponentially slower than if it was more localized. And so a CDN gives you the ability to have your website technically hosted on servers all over the world, and then the closest server is the one that actually is chosen to load your website, load your images, load all your content from, so that it speeds things up. Reducing bandwidth costs, again, the idea that it's hosting servers in different places is that it makes it a little bit more streamlined in terms of your images and all sorts of other stuff. It's not always, things aren't being reloaded and loaded again because there's low network times. There's all sorts of benefits in terms of reducing the overall amount of megabytes that your image or that your website's pulling in, because some hostings, including WP Engine, will charge you extra if you start all of a sudden having a website that is eating up gigabytes of data every month, regardless of how popular it is. Increasing content availability, again, the idea that a CDN, if servers go down in certain places and your CDN is still up, you have the ability for your website to still be able to load in certain parts of the world depending on region availability for those servers. So that's another benefit, a little bit of redundancy. And improving website security, just the idea that usually going through a CDN requires extra security or extra pieces so that you can be a little bit safer in terms of how your website is being hosted, access, all sorts of stuff like that. So again, this little demonstration right here is meant to represent the same type of thing of a CDN, content delivery network, so that if you are searching around for a new host, or if you do currently have a host with WordPress, give them a call, see if they have a CDN offering. Sometimes it's additional cost, sometimes it's built into your fees, but regardless, it's something that I would think most photographers want to keep in mind. So when it comes to the speed, when it comes to what do I do for images, this is something that a lot of photographers struggle with. So again, the idea that I want my images to look beautiful on every single thing, every single platform that people are viewing them on: iPhone, Android phone, laptop, iPad, desktop. All of those have different screen sizes. And so if I upload an image at like 1,000 pixels across, and someone's viewing that on a 4K display, oftentimes it's going to look really, really bad. But if I take that idea and I say, okay, I want my images to look crystal clear on a 4K display, then I need to upload my images at a 4K resolution, which are generally exponentially larger in size. And then all of a sudden, if I have a few of those images on a page, on a blog post or something, the size of that particular page on my website is now exponentially larger, which means it loads slower, which means there's all sorts of negatives for that. People get bored, pages aren't going to load depending on where they are in the world. Google might penalize me for website file size, all sorts of stuff. So as a photographer, there's a really great service out there, really great application that I personally use called JPEG Mini. So JPEG Mini is an Israeli-based company, and they do great stuff with image compression. And the idea is they take your image that you upload to them, or you run through their program on your site, or they have plugins based on that on Lightroom and Photoshop and Capture One. And you take your final image and you run it through the program, and it will shrink the file size without shrinking the quality. Because oftentimes that's what happens, is that if you try to make a smaller file size out of an image that is the same resolution, it degrades the quality. The image's details become mushy, the colors aren't as good, you get banding and all sorts of other stuff. And so JPEG Mini has created a software that is pretty amazing. You can see from this image, this is on their website, this is actually my image on their website that they use to showcase this, where the original source image of this image was 1.3 megabytes, and then pushing it through JPEG Mini created a 0.7 megabyte version of that same image that would see zero degradation in quality, which is pretty amazing when you're talking about hosting images. This is not great if I wouldn't use this if I was using this image to print from, but it's really great if I'm using it on my website, on a blog or something like that, where I want to minimize the file size of the images that I'm putting up there. So oftentimes what I do is I finalize my images in Lightroom or Photoshop, whatever I'm doing, and then on export, I run them through JPEG Mini, and then I take that image and I upload it up into my website and then host it there. And so it's a really great option for people to check out. I think they have 14-day or 30-day trials. I don't get paid by them. It's just, I bought their service. It's something that I use, and they asked to use some of my images in order to showcase what their product does. And I've been such a big fan of them for a number of years that I do use them all the time. So I think that's really, I think it's really great, something to look into. Another one, if you are a WordPress user and you have tons of images, you've already created a WordPress site, you want to make sure that everything loads great, but you realize that JPEG Mini is awesome if you're exporting images and then uploading to your site. If you already have thousands of images or hundreds of images on your site, what do you do? Maybe you have a big blog that has tons of content on it. You can use a plugin such as Imagify, which is something that you could pay for. It's a service, and then you download the plugin, you upload it onto WordPress, and then it will retroactively go back to your images and then compress them for you. And you don't really have to do anything. It's actually really great. So it's a great option for those if you want to retroactively go back to images you've already uploaded onto your WordPress site or WordPress-based site, and then use it that way. So you still get the benefits of shrinking your file sizes down. Now I don't have a slide for it. I probably should have created one, but really quickly talking about image resolution or image resolution to upload to your website. There's a lot of different discrepancy out there in terms of what is the largest file size you recommend uploading so that it does look good across the board. typically for the most part, for me, I don't upload anything. The max I upload is usually between 2,000 to 2,500 pics on the wide side. And the reason for that is that that's a pretty good middle of the road space to make sure that images will look great on the vast majority of things, such as mobile phones, iPads, most desktops, and most laptops. Images on 4K displays will look a little bit soft or a little bit different, but they still can look quite nice depending on the design of your website. And to me, this gives me the best bang for my buck between having images that are too small and look really bad to images that look great, but that are too large in file size. So somewhere around the 2,000 to 2,500 for anything that I'm looking to display big on a blog post or something like that. But if it's something that I am not allowing people to blow up and I'm just hosting in terms of a small thumbnail as part of an article or on one of my pages, then I usually upload lower, somewhere in the 1,200 to 1,500 range. And those still, again, look great on most devices in most situations. But you yourself have to figure out what is the opportunity cost and what are you willing to sacrifice in terms of page load speeds, amount of website traffic you're thinking about getting, and how you want your images to look online when you're working in a WordPress-based site. Again, SmugMug and Squarespace will do most of this stuff for you, and most of their stuff is going to look great in most situations. But for those of us that are on WordPress, these are things that you have to take into account. Upload size, what you're going to do for your blogs, and things like that. So these two different products or services are great for you to think about that type of stuff. Okay, so search engine optimization. I'm only going to briefly cover a few main points of this because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, next week, Brian Smith is doing a deep dive into SEO here with Michaela. And so they'll have plenty of opportunities to answer your questions and whatnot. I just want to talk really quickly about why it's important to me. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. It's the idea that you're customizing your website, your pages, your galleries using very specific techniques in order to make them more readily searchable and more visible to people searching for things that are important to you. So for example, when I write a post like this, 34 tips and tricks for setting up your Sony a7R Mark IV, which I have, I get thousands and thousands of people checking out this particular page every week. I think at the end of the month, it's usually 30 or 40,000 people have checked out this particular page, or at least have for the last few months. And the reason for that is not just because I've shared stuff on social, which I have, and I'll talk about that in the next section, or maybe 2 sections from now. But regardless, it's because I've customized this page to make sure that people are searching for tips for setting up your Sony a7R. This is going to show up first and foremost, or at least high up in that space. And that's something that I want. I want organic search results to be high. I don't want to have to pay for my content to be more visible. And while something like this for a blog post for setting up your Sony a7R Mark IV, for me as a professional, doesn't make me any money. It's just something I like to do for the community. It also brings me a lot more viewers. Where it is really beneficial is when it comes to workshops. So I teach workshops all over the world. As you can see here, you do Patagonia photo workshop, Colby Brown photography. My Patagonia workshop is #1 on what I searched here. If you search up on your own, it might be 3 or 4, but it's going to be on the main page. And the reason for that is because of SEO optimization. I've optimized my pages to make sure using things like keywords, using image alt tags, having backlinks from other sites that are more trusted, that have more web traffic, all sorts of benefits that Brian Smith will go over next week, talking about how to increase SEO and the benefits of that for your own website. But to me, it's exponentially or vitally important to have my website designed with SEO in mind. So my page design, my page file size, the use of keywords, the use of backlinks from places like the Explorer blog on B&H to Alpha Universe, to all sorts of Petapixel, whatever's out there that's getting tons of traffic that is trusted. I want to link back to my site as well, because all that has benefits. So SEO is important, and you'll learn more about that next week. So creating a content strategy. So I'm almost wrapped up here. So content strategy is essentially the idea that I have a game plan for the type of platforms I want to use, the types of plugins I want to utilize, and what exactly I'm doing with having a workshop or having a website to begin with. So for me, if you look at my website traffic, the vast majority of views, the vast majority of visitors that come to my site are looking for reviews for typically Sony lenses and cameras. They're looking at tips and tricks articles, or they're looking at my travel guides, which are all free as well. And each of those has a purpose in terms of directing traffic back to my website. Now, as a professional, I also offer products and services such as workshops, such as tutorials, all sorts of different things. I work with a lot of companies in terms of marketing campaigns and things like that as well. And I went into the mentality when I went to design my website with this idea that how can I direct traffic to my website? What type of content can I create? Do I want to do reviews? Should I do short reviews? Should I do long reviews? And I had to do a lot of case studies to figure out what works best for me. And I found that the reviews, people eat those up. People love to learn about new gear. People love learning about setting up new camera gear. And people love free guides in order to help them shoot different types or photograph different types of things or visit different locations. And so I made a conscious effort to do as much of that as I possibly can, and arguably probably still could do more of it in order to continue to drive more traffic back to my website. And when we talk about social media is vitally important in terms of playing a role in that idea of creating a content strategy so that I can bring people to my website where at that stage there, they might find out about my workshops or tutorials or other things that I do. I don't want to just push out marketing, types of campaigns or marketing pieces that are always just trying to get money from people. That doesn't make any sense. No one wants to have that experience. So I want to be inspirational and educational, but I want to do it in a way that is creatively, business-wise. And so I use things such as social media. As you can see here, this is an Instagram. You can see here, there's a link to my Sony 20mm f1.8 G Master or G series lens review. And so I use social media to typically be my first line of reaching out to people and saying, hey, I have this content, you might be interested. And because I have a large social media following, there's benefits in that. I can push it out to hundreds of thousands of people here on Instagram. I can push it out to Facebook, to Twitter, and get those direct links back. And that's great. That creates what I consider, or what I call, a Grand Central Station type of philosophy when it comes to content management and content planning, where I'm using social media as the pathways to direct people back to my site. But as I mentioned before, SEO is still vitally important in terms of people organically searching for that types of content. So my content strategy is based around leveraging things like social media to get people initially interested in what I've just posted or my most recent stuff. But that ultimately, I'm also relying on things like search engine results, people searching on Google and Bing and other platforms in order to find very specific types of content that I'm always constantly researching and trying to say, what are people searching for right now that I could probably write about so that I can get more viewers onto my website. So I might be able to convert more people to sign up for my newsletter or sign up for a workshop or things like that. So having a good, proper content strategy is vitally important in terms of learning how to leverage things like social media, but also building and designing a proper website and creating the right type of content that people are interested in, rather than just necessarily what you might want to be writing about at that time. I could write about philosophical aspects of photography to the ends of the earth. Michaela, you've listened to me talk for long periods of time on different presentations that I've give. I can certainly do that. But when it comes to content for my website, I want to go with stuff that is digestible, people that are creating content that people are interested in, and that gives me some residual benefits for that website traffic that I have to pay with on my back end for my hosting site. But I get to find indirect ways in order to bring people into my world and then show them who I am and what types of products and services I offer at the same time. So really quickly, the last section here, we have creating visitor marketing, creating visitor/marketing funnels. So when it comes to creating a website, social media is great for directly reaching out and having conversations. Having your own website is great for creating that content, again, controlling that place of the interwebs that's yours, your own digital universe, so to speak. but you need to find ways in order to reach out to clients more directly as well. Social media is kind of a hit or miss when it comes to algorithm changes and how that affects people seeing what you're pushing out there. Changes to Google's algorithms in terms of how organic search results can happen can also change. Something that was performing great for you for a month and you were getting thousands of viewers changes because they did a shift in their algorithm. And so you not only have to try to catch up with that, but you need to find new ways in order to get people to your websites, new visitors to check out what you're doing and to be in, again, your own digital space, your own part of the digital universe. And so one of the ways to do that is a newsletter. So if you go to my website and you're looking around, I think I have it set to after 45 seconds, maybe it's 60 seconds of viewing, this will pop up. And this is just an opportunity for me to get more newsletter subscribers that are interested in the types of content that I push out there, to get free giveaways for stuff I give out, workshop announcements, all sorts of other stuff. Newsletters are phenomenal, and they're a great way in order to get a list of people that you can then reach out to. So I try to send stuff out at least once a month, and I probably should do it a little bit more, of the new content I'm pushing out there, new things I'm involved in, new opportunities for people to partake in different events and things like this that we're doing right now. Newsletters are great. It's a direct line of communication between me and someone else via email through these newsletters. And they can be quite nice. Now, the negative to that is that some of your newsletters can actually wind up in spam. So I want to talk about two other opportunities for visitor funnels to think about as well. First and foremost for me, one that has been exponentially beneficial that I've instituted in the last year is a built-in chat program on my website. So in the bottom right-hand corner, if you go to colbybrownphotography.com, is this little chat box. And hitting that chat box appears on my photo education page, as well as any of my workshops. And what it does is it allows people to reach out and ask questions in real time. And if I'm online or my workshop manager and any of my other employees are online, they can hop in and directly answer your questions. So I'll have people reach out and say, hey, is your Patagonia workshop full? Or hey, when's this next tutorial coming out? Or hey, I'm interested in this. Do you have anything you can offer? It gives me a direct line of communication to not only get their email address and stay connected with them and start building a relationship, but also to in real time answer their questions and be as available as possible so that you can solve any of the problems that they might have and potentially get a new client or at least a new follower and someone that's interested in what you're doing. So highly recommend that. I personally use talk.to, TAWK.to for my WordPress site. There's a few other ones out there, but you can do your reviews and figure out which ones are best for you. And then lastly, I use a program called OneSignal. So if you visited a site before and you get this notification at the top of your page, or whether you're on your phone doing it, and it sits there and says, do you want to be notified or you want to accept notifications from this website? That's what OneSignal and a few other different services that do the similar types of things offer. It gives me the ability for people to visit my site, and let's say they don't want to sign up for a newsletter, but they do want to know when something else is coming up. They hit approve, they accept that notification. They are now in a list on my website and via this plugin, where anytime I push out new content, they automatically get a notification saying, hey, Colby Brown just posted, or Colby Brown Photography just posted this blog post, or this page has been updated, or whatever it is. So it's another way that has a minimal amount of issue in terms of how you deal with spam. People don't have to be there and live once you post it, such as like a chat box, the benefits of that. But it does give me a direct communication between me and visitors for those that do want those updates. And so I use OneSignal to fill that gap and to take away some of the negatives of a newsletter where you send stuff out and things go to spam, or people don't respond to them or don't even open them, to, like I said, the chat box where it's in real time, to something like this, which is more based on push notifications, getting people to be updated directly without having, with being able to cut through some of those other barriers.
My name is Colby Brown. Be sure to subscribe to the Sony Alpha Universe channel